Welcome back. Welcome back to the Landry Hat podcast, a FanSided podcast. I'm your host, Zach. I'll be here all year on the Landry Hat, so if you're not already, subscribe to the channel here on YouTube. If you're listening on audio, Apple Podcast, Spotify, anything like that, go ahead and add it to your library. That way you don't miss a single episode. On today's show, I hate to bring you guys here and talk about this Cowboys game against the Chicago Bears. Dallas falls 31-14. The Bears win their first game of the year, their first win under head coach Ben Johnson. The Cowboys fall to 1-2. And for all the Cowboys fans listening out there, this game raised a lot of questions. Just off the top, the defense we're going to talk about it, but the defense in this game was abysmal. The offense didn't do much to help them out with the number of turnovers that they had. But this just feels like a very weird spot to be in as a Cowboys fan. We had the Week 1 game against Philadelphia. You came out of that game feeling like you competed and that this team had a chance. And then in Week 2, you get into a shootout with the Giants and you win that game, but you're really concerned about what the defense looked like. And then we get to Week 3 against a winless Bears team and you get blown out pretty much. 3 scores, 3 possessions is a blowout in the NFL. And now we're just sitting here kind of holding the pieces. Where do the Cowboys go from here? And that's what we're going to talk about in today's video. But first, we're going to look at the offensive performances for the Cowboys, the defensive performances, what they did well, a little bit of that, and what they really need to fix moving forward if this team wants to win more than 6 or 7 games. So we're going to break this down by offense and defense. We'll save the defensive conversation for later on in the video. Trust me, I'm going to try my best to not get heated talking about the defense. For the offense, though, Dak Prescott completed 31 of 40 passes for 251 yards, had 1 touchdown and 2 interceptions. One of those interceptions coming off the hands of George Pickens with a drop pass, the other in the end zone after the Cowboys threw the ball twice from the 1-yard line, although they were averaging 7.5 yards per carry. But we're going to get into that. But we can't really talk about the passing game and Dak and this offense really without mentioning the injury of Ceedee Lamb. Went down early with an ankle injury, missed the rest of the game, did end up coming back for 1 play. It was a killer for this offense. Not having Ceedee Lamb in the lineup, it just completely takes away the Cowboys' vertical passing game, their explosive plays. It starts making guys have to move up, and George Pickens is now your number 1. Tolbert moves to number 2, which we were worried about coming into the season. Kevontae Turpin, your wide receiver 3, although I thought he played really, really well yesterday. Probably the best wide receiver on the field for the Cowboys. Had a deep pass on a deep crosser for 40, 50, 60-yard gain, something like that. I thought Turpin played well. Tolbert had a few catches here and there. Pickens, feel like we kind of got the full George Pickens experience yesterday in that game against the Bears. You saw some good stuff, and then you saw some not great stuff, and then the drop, and then him get mad, and then he makes a play again. It's just going to be kind of up and down, and him as your number 1 wide receiver is formidable enough, I think, for the offense to score points, but without Ceedee Lamb, you really lose that spark to be able to score 40 points, and with the way that the defense is playing, you're going to have to score 40 points to win. For the passing game, Dak completed 31 of 40 passes, was pretty efficient in the box score, but for dropbacks, the offensive line and the tackles, they just have not played good enough. Terrence Steele is one of those guys. Dak dropping back 40 times starts to put pressure on those tackles with Steele and Guyton, and I think the more and more that we see them throwing the football, the more and more problems they have. The Chicago Bears defensive line is not a juggernaut of a team or a unit. They're not that great. You're going to face better pass rushes throughout the year, yet the Bears were able to get some pressure on Dak and able to force some errant throws and get some pressure on the interior as well against Brock Hoffman with Cooper Beebe out. But those tackles, the more and more pass sets that they have, I think the more and more pressure you're putting on Dak to make things happen quicker, get outside the pocket, and they weren't good enough. Dak was pressured on way too many plays, especially big-time plays on 3rd down and in the red zone. forced the interception. He had to make a play, and he threw the pick in the corner. As for the passing game, when Dak did have a little bit of time figuring out what he wanted to do offensively, what he was seeing, what the Bears were giving him, tight end Jake Ferguson had a ton of catches in this game, but it just kind of felt empty. 13 catches for 82 yards. I know people say that he played well, but there wasn't really anything after the catch. He averaged 6.5 yards per reception. He wasn't breaking tackles. He wasn't picking up first downs, but he was Dak's go-to because I guess I haven't watched the All-22 yet. Going to do that later today. But he was Dak's go-to because Dak didn't like what he was seeing downfield. So it was a bunch of outlet passes, some dump-offs here and there, no yards after catch, no big plays, which is what this offense really needs. And that's going to get you killed when you can't consistently pick up those 3rd and 3, 3rd and 4, 3rd and 5, because, Ferguson might get you a 6-yard catch, but you're still going to have to pick up 3rd and 4. If you could turn those 6-yard catches into 12 and 13-yard catches, I think the offense gets rolling a little bit. But, Ferguson caught 13 of 14 passes, like I said, mainly just a safety valve for Dak. And I think it was because he didn't like what the Chicago defense was showing him pre-snap. They were doing a lot of movement up front, and then they would drop back into coverage, the double A-gap mug, and then back out. I don't think Dak loved what he saw, and it forced him to throw underneath a lot to Ferguson with not a ton of space to operate. What I did like from this game, and it kind of stinks that they got away from this because I thought this was how they win the game, and that was with the running game and the overall balance. I thought the running game early on was great. Outside of that Javonte Williams fumble after a 22-yard run was devastating in terms of how it flipped the game. Obviously, it was really early on. It was the first quarter. So you're like 5 minutes into the first quarter. I can't say it completely flipped the game, but it felt like Dallas had something going until that fumble. But you know what? I'm not going to get mad at Javonte Williams because I didn't think he would be as good as he's been for this team. Williams is far from your number one problem with this Cowboys team winning games. Williams had 76 yards, averaged 7.6 yards per carry. Obviously, before the game slipped away, you could rely on that. But once the Bears started building up a lead, Dallas really just had to abandon the run game, and we're playing catch-up. That's why Dak had 40 pass attempts, because your defense is getting torched on the back end. They're giving up big play after big play, or the Bears are going on these long drives. You don't have time to keep running the ball because the clock is working against you, especially in the second half, and you're worried that you're giving up points at such an alarming rate on defense that Brian Schottenheimer and the offensive coaching staff probably feel like, okay, we got to hit back quick. We just gave up a one-play 70-yard touchdown. We can't go on this 13, 15-play drive where Williams has 7 or 8 carries and Ferguson has 3 or 4 catches. We can't afford to do that because once we give the ball back, they're going to score really quick, and then we got to do it all over again. So it just felt like the game kind of got out of reach. They got away from that run game and the balance that they really, really needed. But all around, you see it, 14 points for the offense. They just weren't good enough. They're going to have to score 40 a game. Right or wrong, I know that's not how you win football games, but for this team in particular, it is how they win football games. They were 3 for 11 on third downs. They could not sustain drives. They couldn't stay on the field. If you cannot consistently pick up third downs, and Dak has been one of the best third down quarterbacks in the entire NFL since he got here. But yesterday, it wasn't working, whether that's because Lamb wasn't out there or Pickens had drops or Ferguson, like I said, wasn't picking up those first downs on a 5 or 6 yard catch. I thought Dak was good, and people can get mad at me about that, but I thought he was fine in this game. I feel like he was far from the problem as well. I mean, you complete 31 of 40 passes. He wasn't liking what he was seeing. They did have big plays here and there, and people that complain about how Dak played, go and watch the Cardinals and 49ers game where the 49ers with Mac Jones only had to score, I believe, 16, 17 points to win. Do we think there's a world where Dak, without Lamb, could score 17 points in a game and win? I just don't see that happening. So it puts a ton of pressure on your quarterback without his number one wide receiver, with guys dropping passes, with the run game pretty much out of the question. Puts a lot of pressure on a quarterback when your defense is also giving up big bomb after big bomb. Drops, fumbles, play calling in the red zone. All of it was really bad. It resulted in you scoring 14 points against a Bears unit that is decimated on the defensive backfield. They have so many DBs out. I think Kyler Gordon missed this game. I know Jalen Johnson was out. I'm not giving Dak a pass. He's going to have to put up 40 to win. They know that. Brian Schottenheimer knows that. He didn't get it done. You can say that he was a part of the problem, but that was far from a game that was on Dak Prescott. And I want to talk about the red zone play calling real quick because I feel like it's worth mentioning. Schotty has done a really good job with the run game. The Cowboys offense through the first couple of weeks has been really good. Outside of some CD drops and a Miles Sanders fumble in the red zone, and you go back and look at week 2, you put up 40 with 4 quarters in overtime, going back and forth with the Giants, consistently hitting big plays. Then you get into week 3. It's a different feel because you're down so big. It's not a close game. Feel like Schotty kind of got away from what he really wants to do or needs to do as the Cowboys play caller and head coach. I thought the play calling in the red zone was a problem. You're down on the 1-yard line, you get the ball to the 1, and the first thing that they do is get up to the line and they throw a fade ball to Pickens. Okay, to me that feels a little like me playing Madden, right? Where I get all excited, I'm on the 1-yard line, why am I going to run it? I'm just going to throw the fade ball to my best red zone wide receiver. Like, just run the ball. Javonte Williams was averaging 7.5 yards per carry. You're already on the 1-yard line. I believe that he can score in 2 chances from the 1. You were getting movement up front. Your offensive line is a better run-blocking offensive line than they are pass-blocking. So why are we dropping back on 3rd and goal from the 1 and 4th and goal from the 1? It just doesn't make sense to me with some of the things that he does. And I think it's because this is his rookie season as a head coach, right? He's never coached a football team and been a part of coaching the offense and defense and special teams. He is over all of that. He has say over all 3 of those units while also being the play caller. He's on the sidelines watching the defense play, watching them give up big points, and it feels like he is trying to play catch-up. Obviously, you do have to be in that mindset of playing catch-up, but you can't let the game get away from you in the obvious situations to where you wasted a 3rd and goal from the 1 and then a 4th and goal from the 1 in the shotgun with a guy that's averaging 7.5 yards per carry. So I feel like it's on Schottenheimer just a little bit to kind of get this team under control, not be so disjointed where you're giving up so many points defensively. You can't figure out what's going on over there, but you know how bad your defense is and you're playing catch up even if the game is at 0-0 on offense. I thought that really that killed the game. That Dak interception in the end zone, that put the fork in them. That was it. They were cooked after that. I like what I've seen from the run game. I like what I've seen from the passing game. I didn't think the offense was terrible per se, but I'm going to go back and watch the All-22 again and see what I think then, because I think I was just so put out by the defensive performance that I just was kind of like, okay, well, the offense is doing something, so they must be playing kind of well. Schottenheimer needs to do something different defensively. I mean, I think people forget, just because he's the play caller, it doesn't mean he's not the head coach. Like, he has say in what they're going to run defensively, and that's where we're going to segue into the defensive performance for the Cowboys, where I might lose my cool just a little bit, right? Defense was unable to find any answers for Ben Johnson, Caleb Williams. Williams had 4 touchdown passes, 298 passing yards, no sacks, no interceptions, in a pretty big game that relied on big plays. I don't think he was super efficient per se. It isn't like we've seen from Jared Goff in a Ben Johnson offense to where he's just consistently hitting plays for 10, 15 yards. A lot of his yards came from 2 or 3 really big plays early on, and then they just kind of rode the game out because they knew they could pull out a 15, 20 play drive against this defense. But 298 passing yards and no sacks for a guy that has been sacked every single game of his NFL career in Caleb Williams. This is the first game that Williams has not taken a sack. Guys, we are 20 games in the Caleb Williams career. He has played 20 career games, a season and a quarter up to this point, and the Dallas pass rush could not get home. We're talking about a guy that had the third most sacks in the Super Bowl era given up in a season, like 68. It was some crazy number, and you did not get to him at all. And it doesn't help on the back end. They completely exploited that secondary. Multiple big plays, a 35-yard touchdown to Rome Odunze early on, a 65-yard flea flicker to Luther Burden. The flea flicker is because your defensive backs are getting stuck with their eyes in the backfield. Guys are running past him. The 35-yard touchdown was actually man coverage by Matt Eberflus, and I think we're starting to understand why they don't run man coverage, because Diggs goes to stab, jam the wide receiver at the line, slips, falls down, and then he's got like 10, 15 yards of separation. It's an easy touchdown, and that's where it felt like, okay, it's going to be one of those games. That came right after the Javonte Williams fumble. It's tough, and we're going to talk about Matt Eberflus in just a minute, but the third down defense was a problem. The offense, like I said, they were 3 for 11. The Bears converted on 57.1% of their third downs. Dallas, like I said, 27% on offense. That's a big discrepancy. That loses you football games. That loses you football games by 3 scores. In the red zone, Chicago, They played well. 2 of 3 red zone trips for touchdowns. Dallas only managed 1 touchdown on 4 trips inside the 20-yard line. Dallas had 4 turnovers, 2 interceptions by Prescott. You can say that the Milton one, I don't think the Milton one counts. Let's just say 3 turnovers in that game, and the Bears converted those into points. The Dallas defense has not gotten a turnover that they've created this year. We're talking about that Russell Wilson one. He pretty much threw a punt to Donovan Wilson. I think Malik Neighbors or Wilson, one of them wasn't on the right page. He just kind of chunked it up there. The timing was off. You got a little bit of pressure. Maybe you could say that forced it. The Dallas defense has really done nothing to get turnovers and help the offense. The offense is consistently having to play from the 25, 30-yard line, 70-yard drives. They haven't forced any turnovers. They weren't good. And I went into this game, and I'm pretty sure I talked about it in my preview video here on the Landry Hat. Make sure you guys are subscribed and you add this podcast to your library. That way you can listen to it any time of the day, at work, in your car. Make your wife listen to it. Make sure you're subscribed and it's added to your library. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all of that good stuff. But I was going into this game, I was worried about Ben Johnson and what he saw on film against the Giants. We know that he's a creative play caller. And we saw it. They had the flea flicker. It was a really balanced attack. They were doing some different things with Luther Burden and Rome Odunze, and they were good on third down. And in the red zone, 2-minute drills, Ben Johnson took advantage of Matt Eberflus in the way that I thought that he could, based on how Dallas has played so far. You look at that Giants game, that was a big, flashing red light as soon as it was over. Dallas won that game. They went to 1-1, but we knew from that point on that this defense was not going to be good. Ben Johnson watched that film, and he knew it as well. Brian Schottenheimer on the other side. We're kind of going over the coaches, the strategy, like what was going on the sidelines, how coaching kind of won this game as well for Brian Schottenheimer. Some decisions to keep trying to push the offense, getting away from the run game, even when it wasn't necessarily out of hand. But like I said, he was kind of leaning on the defense not getting stops. He knew that the defense wasn't going to get stops, so he was trying to hit the big plays and do some fancy things to kind of swing the momentum of this game, and it just didn't really work out. And I don't think it's a detriment to Schottenheimer. I like what I've seen so far. This team is more disciplined. They had less penalties than the Bears yesterday. They can run the ball well. The passing attack has been good with Ceedee in the game. But I think it's time for Schottenheimer to swing over to the defense side of the ball and go into Matt Eberflus's office, go into those defensive meeting rooms and say, what is going on? Who needs to not be out there on the field? Who needs to be spending more time in the film room? Why are we having so many busted coverages on the back end? And really get to the bottom of this, because in my preview video as well, I talked about Eberflus knowing Caleb Williams. He knows this guy. He coached him for over half a year. He was in all of the meetings with him. I'm sure he watched film with him, although Caleb, I think, said he didn't. But he knew this quarterback. He watched him practice every single day, watched him play for half a year, was in the building with him, and he still couldn't get it done. He couldn't come up with a plan to get it done. And that's where I really start to feel for Eberflus, right? The easiest change that this team can make is moving on from their defensive coordinator. That's the easiest move. The hardest move and the hard reality to accept is they need new players. And at this point in the season, we're in week 3 going into week 4, you can't just move everybody. You can't start signing guys that are really going to make a difference. You're kind of where you are roster-wise. And that's why I feel for Eberflus, because I don't know if he has the horses on the back end. Diggs has not played well. Elam has not played well. Donovan Wilson cannot cover. That guy cannot cover. Stop putting him as a single high safety or in the middle of the field, his third of the field in the middle. He is not a center field rangy safety. He does not have good depth perception or whatever it is. He cannot read the ball in the air and take the correct angles to the football, or his eyes get lost in the backfield. He is a box safety. Can we see Wanye Thomas? Can we see Marquise Bell? Can Savon Ravel get healthy and play on the other side, Elam's side, and can Diggs just play better? I start to feel bad for him because you're not getting a pass rush either. If you can't get a pass rush, and this is what Eberflus wants to do defensively, rush 4, get pressure with 4, play 7 on the back end. In the past, we've seen that work against the Cowboys offense because they couldn't block well up front, or they were just getting beat, and Dak was having to throw into really tight windows really quickly. That's not the problem for other offenses facing this Dallas defense. They're able to sit back there 3, 4, 5 seconds, and by that point, guys are starting to pop open in zones, or guys are starting to drift up and out of their zone, or guys are running vertical past people. It's all over the place. So I feel for Eberflus, and it feels like it's easy to say that's the main change. That's what this team needs to change, that unit, and it might help. It's easy. The Joneses do not fire coaches, especially coordinators, defensive coordinators, even with Rob Ryan being as bad as he was back in the early 2010s, historically bad defenses. They didn't move on from Rob Ryan, and they're not going to move on from Matt Eberflus. You have to start looking at other ways to get better, whether that's hoping that guys come back or you make a trade with some of your draft picks, but it's not just one player that needs to be fixed. But we got to kind of move off of this. Matt Eberflus needs to be fired. I know I have been leading that campaign because the Cowboys just don't do that. They've never fired a defensive coordinator midseason, and it doesn't feel like that's going to happen with Eberflus. Somebody that they really, really like, they have a relationship with, somebody that Shoddy has a relationship with. They're not going to just fire that guy because what's the plan after him? You bring in the defensive backs coach and hope that he can be the defensive coordinator, or do you get the defensive line coach and hope that he can be the defensive coordinator? It's not like either of those units have been playing exceptionally well. What are their philosophies? How do the players that you have fit into that? I think that's what we need to figure out with Eberflus now. Where do those guys fit in his scheme, and what do they do well? What do they not do well? More so than just like, oh, we got to completely overhaul the defense and fix it this year. Like, I'm really worried that this is not a 2025 fix. You can move on from Eberflus after this season. That's something the Cowboys could potentially do. It's something they've done in the past. But as far as getting better in 2025 and giving yourself hope for this year, you really just got to hope that guys play better and Eberflus is able to figure out something. It sounds impossible right now. You gave up 37 to the Giants. You gave up 31 to the Bears. Where do you go from here? I don't know. But I'm not sure you have the horses on the back end to do that. I mean, we're relying on some guys to get back healthy, right? Savon Ravel and DeMarvion Overshone and Deron Bland is out. But does that really change anything? Does that give Eberflus the pieces that he needs? Because I don't think he's running enough blitzes or getting the nickel to blitz and stunts up front and rushing 5, 6, playing man coverage. And I actually wanted to point this out, that Eberflus plays a lot of zone. I don't think he played a single man coverage snap in week 1 against the Eagles. In week 2 against the Giants, I think they ran like a handful. Yesterday against the Bears, they ran 4 man coverage snaps. And Bobby Belt tweeted out Caleb Williams was 4 for 4 for 86 yards and 2 touchdowns against man coverage yesterday. That just tells me that you don't have the guys to cover on the back end. Diggs has not played good at all. Not worth that contract. He's gone after this year. I think the Cowboys just move on. Kaiir Elam, he's more so a man corner than he is a zone cover corner, but he hasn't been good. The Buffalo Bills traded him for like a 5th-round pick. That should tell you a little something, right? They gave him away for pretty much nothing. So the defense is in shambles, and what really, really stinks is where do you go from here? I don't know where you go from here. That might be the worst thing. I don't know if there's a way to turn it around. Like I mentioned, maybe you get lucky and some guys come back, and Savon Ravel is a really good, I like him in zone coverage. Long, rangy, can get in those passing lanes, clog those up. He's good, explosive downhill. He has a little bit of trouble with some route combination stuff and recognizing and understanding what he's seeing underneath. But he's a pretty good zone cover corner. And then you have Deron Bland, who is just a good player that's been out. Hopefully he's back healthy against the Packers. But other than that, you get Overshown back. Kenny Clark got hurt in this game. Hopefully he's not hurt, because that week 4 game against the Packers is going to be rough if you're missing Kenny Clark and Diggs is either out or playing the way that he is, and Savon Ravel isn't back, and Deron Bland isn't back, and it could get really, really ugly for this team. There were a couple momentum swings in this game that really just took the air out of it really, really early. Obviously, that turnover that Javonte Williams had, the fumble, the Bears capitalized with that Odunze touchdown where Diggs slipped, and that just set the tone for the entire game. I felt like Dallas did a really good job of setting the tone themselves for the first 4 minutes of the game. It's funny because I act like that's just like this big thing, but it was. The first 4 minutes is how I thought they could win. They played good, sound defense. They got a 3-and-out for the Bears. Bears punt the ball to Dallas. A pretty good Kevontae Turpin return. Dallas has the ball at the 40-yard line. They run the ball well. I think they had a run to Williams first. Then they get the big run for 20-something yards, and then the fumble. From there, they got completely out of their element. And maybe that's what I'm talking about with Brian Schottenheimer, is after that play, it felt like everything just started to crumble. Then you had the Ceedee Lamb injury. That alters the entire offensive game plan. That altered what the Bears were wanting to do defensively. Those couple of moments just deflated the entire game. It felt like it was going to be one of those days for the Cowboys, and it sucks because I did think that they could beat the Bears. My score prediction was 27-26. Dallas didn't get anywhere near scoring 27 points. The Bears scored 31, and they probably could have had a lot more if they weren't playing conservative ball control, eat up the clock offense, where they had a drive in the third quarter that just went on and on and on. A 19-play drive for 76 yards that ate up 9 minutes and 54 seconds of the game. After that touchdown, it was 14-24. They score that touchdown. It's 14-31. Immediately after, 4 plays later, and just 30 yards, Dak has the interception off of Pickens' hands, and that was the end of it. Coming out of half, you were down 14-24. It felt manageable, but once again, you give up that long touchdown. The Bears ate up 10 minutes of the clock in the third quarter. You let them have the ball for 66% of the third quarter. That is awful. That is terrible, terrible defense, and you're not going to win games like that, especially when your offense is struggling without their number one, and now instead of it being, getting a stop and getting the ball back with 10 minutes left to play in the third, your offense is getting the ball back with 15 minutes left to play in the fourth. That's not going to work. And Jerry Jones made a big point of, we're going to be able to stop the run, but he didn't say anything about stopping the pass because they've been historically bad in that area. Now, I know I've been pretty negative, but I do want to point out some positives. I talked about it for a minute. I thought Javonte Williams played well. I'm really, really impressed with what I've seen so far. He is a hard runner. He's not the most explosive. He's not the most twitched up guy, but that guy does not go down on first contact. He runs dudes over. He makes guys not want to tackle him as the game goes on, and I think if Dallas could have held this game a little closer, that they would have had a chance to pound the ball in this game. The Bears did not want to tackle Javonte Williams by the end of this game. You could see it. Their DBs were sick and tired of that guy. Williams has been so much better. The run game is not a concern for me at all. I think it's something that you're going to have to lean on if Ceedee ends up missing a lot of time. You're going to have to rely on your run game, and I do believe in Javonte Williams and Clayton Adams and Brian Schottenheimer as far as run scheme. They've done a really good job. I mean, you average 7.5 yards per carry, and that wasn't just because it was late in a blowout. Williams didn't really have a carry, I don't think, past the third quarter. Shout out to Javonte Williams. On the defensive side of the ball, there actually is a guy that I wanted to shout out, and that's the Cowboys nickel corner, Reddy Stewart. Thought he had a really good game. I like what I've seen so far from him on tape. I'm probably going to go back and watch him specifically every snap that he played. I was really worried with the loss of Jordan Lewis that was going to be a spot that you were really going to struggle with. And I think he's a guy that you got off of the waiver wire has been one of your best defensive players. And that is a problem. Right? That's not good. A guy that got taken in the 7th round, I think a year or two ago, and then gets cut, and you pick him up on the waiver wire. He's your best defensive player so far. That's not great for any unit. Reddy Stewart, Javonte Williams, I'm not going to hate on Jake Ferguson too much. He did have 13 catches on 14 targets. Just going to have to get some more big plays out of that. I want to see the other tight ends get involved, or the other tight end with Brevin Spanford. Not as much Luke Schoonmaker. Brevin Spanford had that big play, and it ultimately got called back. He's got a little bit of juice. Can we see him out there? He can block. You can do some things with him on play-action bootleg stuff because they think that he's going to block and then throw the ball to him. See what he can do with a little bit of space out front. Before we go, I wanted to go over a couple of stats and metrics from this game. In total yards, Dallas actually had more than the Bears, but that was because the Bears were playing ball control, eat up the clock. They weren't going for the big shot. They weren't trying to stop the clock a whole lot. Dallas actually outgained them in this one, 396 to 385 for the Bears. Third down conversion, like I mentioned, that is what absolutely killed you. Defensively, I don't trust this team to get off the field at all. They gave up 57.1% on third downs. Dallas had a 27% conversion rate on third. That's not going to get it done. In the red zone, it really came down to the red zone and third down stuff with Dallas, as it does in every NFL game. Dallas was 1 of 4 in the red zone. The Bears were 2 of 3. Most of their touchdowns came outside the red zone where they're able to throw a deep bomb and the defensive backs can't do anything with a vertical pass. I don't really know. Red zone, third down stuff for the offense is really going to have to get cleaned up if you're going to score 40 points. And it really worries me with this team because I don't know where you go from here defensively. And if this is how we're going to play football with Ceedee Lamb out, I don't know if you can win a whole lot of games. I'm just really, really bummed out from this. Really, really bummed out. You know, I was excited after that Eagles game. I was a little down after the Giants game, but you know what? You got to win. Maybe that was just a one-off. Russell Wilson was cooking with the deep ball. But after this one, I think we're really, really in a tough spot, guys. And it stinks. You know, I was excited for the season. I'm still excited. You know, we'll see what happens against the Packers. Packers just had a really bad loss to the Browns. Micah Parsons coming back to town. I'm kind of all over the place. So if you guys are watching this, if you could, go down there, hit that subscribe button. Also, comment your thoughts from the game. I read all of the comments. I'll respond. I enjoy hearing what you guys think. You guys bring up some interesting points. If you're listening on Apple Podcast or Spotify, add it to your library. You can also come over here on YouTube and leave your comments as well. I really appreciate you guys for listening. It means a ton. Here at the Landry Hat, I'm going to be here all season. Doesn't matter what happens. I'm gonna be here. You know what? It's still Go Cowboys. We're going to break down this Packers game later this week. Thank you guys for listening. I love you all, and I'll see you back next time here on the Landry Hat Podcast and on the Landry Hat YouTube channel. Bye.